never talked in this space. We've never used this space to talk, so I hope you guys can hear us. And I'm so grateful that you all came to just experiment with us on this first night to see what it's like to bring a bunch of friends together to hear another friend and brilliant artist have a conversation. And so thank you for jumping in and spending the day with us and the night with us.
So you and we were just talking about like, I just opened the show here in New York.
Yeah.
And it's my first solo show here. And yeah, it's my first solo show. I've done like TFAF and different fairs and everything, but this was the first like dedicated show. Yeah. And
has anybody gone to see Jubilee yet? If you haven't, you have to. But it's not far from here. It's on for a while, right? Till
yeah, well, it's I think the 26th or 25th. Yeah, you have to check it out.
Yeah.
But we were just talking about how like as a black man who creates art, it's often difficult to have the art world discuss my work in a way that is intellectual and not just a cursory glance of like, oh, he's making black figures and they're abstracted, you know. I always say that like Picasso, he created art. He didn't create white art. He didn't create Spanish art. It was accepted as art. So I believe that my experience is also part of the human experience. And, you know, maybe it's idealistic to think of right now in that way, but I feel that I would like to see it where it's like this is just part of humanity, you know? But yeah, that's what we were talking about before the cameras came on. Yeah.
And is there anything, as a white woman who wouldn't know, is there anything where you also say yes to be seen as just beautiful, extraordinary art, right?
Right.
At the same time, right. There is a lens, a body, a face, a shade of skin that hasn't been in many ways represented as beautifully as you represent it for far too long.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do you? Is there a because there's space for that, right?
Right. I think that like when I was in high school, you know, before it became popular to know that Basquiat was a genius and amazing, like we were like high school art geeks, and we knew that, you know, this was in the 90s, and I heard him say something, or I didn't hear him say something. It was a quote from him where he was talking about, I don't make black art, I make just art, you know. And I remember being offended by it because I'm like, are you ashamed of being black? Also, I was a kid, but are you ashamed of? That's the way it was presented to me because I had no reference. I had no reference to the struggles that he was going through as a young man in the art world, you know, and facing racism and stuff like that. So now that, you know, I've been given an opportunity to, I'm not sitting in the seat, but I'm very close, that that I understand what he was saying, where it's just like, you know, we do have a responsibility, and I feel like it's a responsibility to my ancestors and to the people who are still going through struggles today to represent in the best way possible. But I feel that I do that without you know, mention. It just happens. It is what it is. Like I feel that just like with one of my favorite painters, his name is Jack Whitten, he always talks about the work is political. When I wake up in the morning and I make it, it is authentic and political without saying, you know. But can we talk about the ideas that are behind it? Because Jack Whitten was deep in the philosophy and science behind, you know, this magic that we call art, you know. At the end of the day, if nothing else could show us the reality, it's like when COVID hit, you know, the first thing that people went towards was like creativity and art. And it was then that I kind of like realized, I'm like, everything that we value in society, you know, whether it's a Mercedes-Benz or a mansion or some nice shoes, sneakers, whatever. That's art, you know. If music, you take any of that away, and you know, what are we like? Just IRS pray, and you know what I'm saying? Just like what you know, what is life? Yeah, if that makes sense, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so Jubilee, what was the thought behind that in particular, and that word and that series?
First of all, like Jubilee, there are a few words in the English lexicon or whatever that when you say them and you see them written, that they give off a feeling, right? Jubilee is one of those words where it sounds and looks like what it is, which is this celebration, and whether it's a finite timeline or if it's just a general feeling, it's the same. Obviously, I'm coming as far as like the African American experience. Jubilee represents the Emancipation Proclamation, which has always been an interesting yet contentious subject because of, I don't necessarily believe that a person such as Abraham Lincoln has the power to free anyone. The laws can change, and I think that was important that the law did change. But with the show, I'm never based solely in reality. There's always a fantasy aspect to the work, and more so like a fantasy aspect to history. History to say, okay, we know the Emancipation Proclamation happened. What did it feel like for a black family who is, or if they existed, because it wasn't much of a family, but a black family to be finally emancipated, so to speak, right? We all know that there were not opportunities available. It's like you're free to do what, but on a less cynical outlook on it, I'm sure that there were there was an idea of freedom, that we could do anything. And from what we saw, like from the Emancipation Proclamation up into the mid 60s, we saw a century of just this explosion of creativity. And you had doctors, lawyers, inventors, all coming out. And like what Gil Scott Heron often talked about when he was with his poem, like Whitey's on the Moon, always interpret that as like, if black people or brown people were not oppressed, what could we have accomplished right now together? What I'm saying? We could have done so much more, but that was kind of like the basis for the show. And I always say that my work, where it exists right now, is in so one of my favorite bands is Nirvana, right? And Kurt Cobain is one of my favorite writers, and I kind of always look at his work and I say his first album, Bleach, and then Incesticide. Those were Cobain gazing out at the world. Right? It was almost like he was observing things that he saw into the world. But his work didn't become truly powerful, at least in my opinion, until the gaze turned inward. And that was Nirvana, where he started talking about the landscape within. And that's when you start to get to the meat and potatoes of what it is to be a human being, And I think that I'm experiencing a pivot where my gaze has always been outward, because it's safe. It's safer. I feel like there's a nightmare going on out here in the world, but there's always a worse nightmare going on inside, and always fight between good and evil and everything, and your past and your present. So I feel that I'm on the crux of crossing over until now we're gonna start seeing things, seeing my life, right? So Jubilee is, I would say, I can't dictate it because who knows what I'm gonna paint next, but I feel like this is gonna be one of my last shows where I'm gazing out at the world, you know? Yeah, yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, that's so
Right.
interesting. Well, just the process of being an artist to get to that, and the journey that you keep taking, and the self-discovery and the view of the world, and
Yeah.
I think that's why when we see your work, we have that. It does something for us. We didn't create it, but we can sit in front of it and we can absorb it, and it can feel. It can take us somewhere. It can remind us of things. It can be, and sometimes we don't understand it. It just is, and we want to live with it, or we want to look at it often, and and it does something unexplainable. But it's so important.
Yeah, I love that. I love when people aren't able to explain what it is that draws them to my work. There have been times where I wake up at 3 a.m. or whatever, or maybe I'm just in the studio listening to jazz, and I'm drinking some whiskey and I'm feeling good, and something will hit me where I'll understand that what's happening here in terms of what's on the canvases is 100% spiritual. Like I've never had a spiritual experience like in the traditional sense, like in church. Like I used to close my eyes in church and I would see red and silver dots. And I'm like, where? Like I didn't feel like they saying see God, and I'm just like I don't see anything. Like I would almost be nodding off, you know. But the only time I've ever had a religious experience is when, like I said, I'm in a studio and I'll turn back and I'll look at something that I created and I can't explain it, and I'll say, man, this is so beautiful that not to minimize myself, but I feel like I can't create that. You know, like, and I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the feeling that I have. I'm not able to create that. So it must be some greater energy.
Something coming through you.
Yeah, that's creating the work. And, you know, I think that with the tragedies that happens with a lot of artists, I assume that it has to do with that great gift that's given, that there's this burden almost that is hard to reconcile for a lot of artists. And if you're lucky, you can mature to a point where you can learn to stabilize and, you know, stabilize all of the gifts that you have and not have that equal part of destruction, because, you know, we live in a world, it's all yin and yang, it's all like balance. So you're creating, you're giving all of this energy out to the world, and there's this kind of like, you know, when you step near a cliff, there's like a slight urge to jump. There's that in the creative process, like constantly, where like a creation and destruction. So I'm grateful to actually like to have made it past. I feel like that phase where I'm like, okay, I can maybe make it till I'm 80 or something.
Do you go through periods where like, have you ever tried to not paint? Have you ever tried to restrain yourself and see what happens? Have you ever tried to just?
Yeah, I did. So when I left the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, their program is so extensive where like, first of all, it's extremely conceptual, right? So like I joke about it all the time. Like this is a real story. Once I watched a girl bang her head against the locker for 15 minutes on a video, and they were like, "Well, what does this mean?" You know, and I'm just like, it means she might need some help. You know, like she means, you know. So, but it was very conceptual, you know, and in between that, we were learning art history, and I'm talking about like hundreds of hours of art history, and you learn about the root to of everything that's ever been done. And for what it did for me, also, you know, aside from going to school in a museum, it sterilized me. Like I felt like, you know, first of all, what could I contribute to this 500, 600 years of art? Secondly, I feel like a soldier. You know how the Marines say, we break you down to build you up. I'm broken down, you know, and that's why most people go and wait tables and they just say like, I'm not going to be an artist. So I left the Art Institute.
Wow.
I left the Art Institute and I tried to become an artist and put up my show, and people came and they drank the wine and ate the cheese and left. And I was just like, okay, this can't be what it means to be an artist because I can't pay rent, you know? So I decided to just go and do something else. And that's when I embarked on journalism, which is crazy. It's like a crazy,
that makes sense.
Yeah, journalism, which led to music production. And, you know, you're just doing something, especially like when you're in your early mid 20s. You feel that you could do anything, so which is great, you know. But I always knew that I would circle back to my purpose, my true purpose, which is visual art, you know. And the reason that I know that's my true purpose is because I survey everything else that I've done in my life, and you know, I was good. You know, some people are saying he writes really well and his album is okay, right? But there's never been anything where I actually saw someone cry, you know, when they see the work. And if I'm being completely honest, I neglected my talent for a long time, I think, because I thought that it would always be there, you know, and I also thought that it was too easy to be true, because my life had been so hard. I'm like, anything worth having is worth really working for so hard, you know. And early on, I saw that I was getting attention for being an artist, and I was like, it was too easy, you know.
So you didn't trust it.
I didn't trust it. And I still have issues with that, because like I've shown all around the world now, and then my work is like valued at all this stuff, and I'm just like, I still have underdog mentality, you know, and I don't know if it'll ever go away, and I don't think that I want it to go away.
Well, it's a funny thing, isn't it, to put a price on art?
Yeah.
Right? It's a strange thing, and it's become such a business, and it's to decide the value. You know the value to you.
Yeah.
You know, the person that sits with it, looks at it, knows the value. And then there's this kind of this business in any of the creative fields where there's this other measurement, other business that should just be there to make everything else possible, right?
Right.
Take the pressure off, make it possible, or but so often it does. It gets you further from just that simple thing you want to do and communicate. And
I look at them as two separate things, right? Mm-hmm. I had to come to terms with that, because I literally and physically did not want to part with my work. It was a problem, because how are you gonna survive? It's like, I'm like, no, this is mine, and it's like, but we have to like sell it, and you know, but that's an interesting, like, so I had to change my idea about money. Right, because I grew up growing up, I had an extremely negative view of money, right? Because capitalism, I was a victim of capitalism. You know, I was in the housing projects, and you know, it was hard. So I had this idea that if you become rich, then you become evil, right? Mm-hmm. And where I've come to now is that I think that money allows a person to be more of what they were in the first place. You know?
Yeah.
It
gives them. Give freedom.
Yeah, I'm saying if you're fucked up, it's gonna make you really fucked up.
Oh, I understand that. Right.
Yeah.
It's gonna just magnify whatever those.
Yeah, and if you're charitable, you're gonna become more charitable.
Right.
You're gonna have more resources to do such.
Right.
So I felt that I had to change my attitude because I was not like, I was repelling. I don't believe in blessings, because I don't believe that people sitting in Starbucks are blessed and people sitting in Haiti are cursed. You know, I just think some people are you know, I don't want to say lucky. I don't know, fucking chance. Like you sitting in Starbucks and you have lights right now. But this random chance or whatever, where I am now, like the positive part that I see from my market is that I stand on the shoulders of so many black artists who died without seeing a penny, right? And it's not just black artists, it's white artists as well, right? This is a new phenomenon, relatively new, where we're able to not only live off of our artwork, but we're able to create and become philanthropists, you know? And I think that's important. It's important. And I was asked in an interview recently, just like, you know, what my future plans or how I felt like, you know, and I said, you know, one of my biggest focuses outside of the work is my philanthropy, right? When you're coming from generational poverty, right? No one prepares you for financial success. So what starts happening is that everybody and their mother, from distant cousins to whatever, they're like, you know, hey, you know, I have stomach cancer and I need whatever, you know, it's like all this stuff, and they're all asking for stuff. And when early on, I was excited, and I also was whatever. I was just giving, and then I realized I'm not helping. I'm hurting myself, and there's no structure to it to where it can be sustainable, you know. And I actually had to go to therapy for that, to like realize that, you know, you had, like, if I have a giving heart and you want to do well, but it has to be in a structure. It can't just be like, here, I'm gonna give you, because people will just go crazy with that, right? So I think that that's something that artists, there's no training program to learn that, to like, okay, you're gonna go from starving and eating ramen noodles and not paying rent to now you're a millionaire, like, or whatever, you know, 100,000 there. There's no preparation, or, you know, and as much as possible, like, within reason, I try to help like other artists who are up and coming, like prep them a little bit. Because right now we're sitting in Basquiat's space. And I feel that he fell a victim to that, to like this art world, who they could be extremely brutal and callous. And it's like, if you don't have the fortification around you spiritually and otherwise, then you could really be in harm's way, you know? And I'm just, what, am I talking too long?
No.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, it's wonderful to hear you talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's important to me, you know? Yeah.
No, so much to come to terms with the life as an artist, and to communicate and to...
Yeah. I mean, it is, and my honest opinion of the art world right now is that it has become completely corporate, and the spirit of what made art like art, you know, the punk rock, or just like, I don't know, the ethos of that has just kind of folded. And I understand why, because it's like what I just described. There's this you know, paradigm of like, I don't want to fuck up my shit. Like, you know, like if I get shut out, then I'm gonna be shut out, you know. And that's true. Like, there's so many things that that can really end your career. And for me, like, I take those, I think I talked to you once about that, where I was like telling you, like, man, I don't know, you know, how to navigate, you know, how I feel inside and what's right, versus what is being presented to me and what will garner success. Because I'm not a fucking fool. Like, I know that I feed my whole family, right? So they all depend on me, just like, you know, I'm sure your family depends on you, and it's not like whatever rare, but that is the fear that everyone is walking around with. You know, it's like that's what capitalism kind of does.
But then as an artist, right, if you
Yeah.
say, then it is that strange thing we all deal with we're supposed to stay, you got to stay a little bit in that area where you're pushing and you're questioning and you're
right. Well, but I think that
and it's good, and you do, and you need to, you have to.
Right. I think that though, if that is your natural practice, like, so with my work, right? I once tried to paint reproduce a painting from Jacob Lawrence. It was Jacob Lawrence painted a scene of a race riot in St. Louis. And I was like, I love that painting, and I want to try to like see if I can add my thing to it, you know? And I did it, and I was like, this is not you. You know, like, so there is Edgar Allan Poe, and then there's like, what's my guy who did Green Eggs and Ham? Dr. Seuss, right? Both are necessary. Or a Tupac Shakur, who's like, he could have these heavy themes and everything, and then there's a LL Cool J, you know? And no offense, I love LL Cool J. No, but you have to figure out where you exist in that, right? So I think I know that my strength is showing what we could be, right?
That's really beautiful.
You know, and sometimes like I get a little, you know, the journalists come to me and they're like, you know, it's just so beautiful and it's just black beauty, and I'm like, oh shit, no, like it's so deep, it's so much deeper. There is pain there, but I'm also showing us what we have the potential to be, you know, and I know the problems. I know the problems of the world. Like I constantly, you know, I turn into Fred Hampton at night. I'm like speaking to my friends in private. I'm just like, this motherfucker, you know? And yeah, but when it comes to my art, that's my refuge. So like I leave all of the problems of the world behind. I say, well, what can we be? Like, this is what I'm painting right now, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It really feels that way.
Yeah.
Your work.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of. Before we met and got to know you, I just love your work.
Thank you.
I just think it is beautiful, but it is more than beautiful, and I don't have the words to describe it. It's strong, too. It's very. You know, sometimes you see the work and you still feel somebody's discovering, they're finding, they put something out that it feels like it knows what it is. It has it's something very absolute about it, even though it moves and there's a fluidity, and there's the way the colors, the way the shapes, the way the movement, the feeling there, but it's decided.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how else to explain that, right? It feels with a very steady hand.
Mm. So I'm discovering in my work, the minute I feel that I think that I got, let's say I'm working on a painting and I'm like, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, and then I feel like I really have a hold on that painting, it's time to destroy it because I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable, and I need to be uncomfortable because growth is not necessarily a pleasant experience. It's an uncomfortable experience. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to find the painting. And it's real. It's coming from me, and then I'll see it. And this is where I think that what differentiates a professional artist who can repeat this process over and over is like knowing when to stop, knowing when the painting is there, and also finally seeing how this organic searching, and it's just it seems very confident, because I am confident. I'm confident that if I don't find, I'll just fucking go to sleep. You know, if I don't find a painting and nothing happens, I'll go to sleep. But otherwise, I see something. I finally see something. I see a mother and child, and it's a different type of mother and child. It's a mother and child I may have seen, you know, is a amalgamation, or what, if that's the right word, of all of the mother and children that I've ever seen in my life, and is now in this one moment. And what, you know, the mark making and the lines, what that does is it's like you can create different moments within one, so they're all happening at once. And then I'll frame that with a little of let's just say stability, and then I'll bring in some gold. I want to accentuate certain parts and bring a focal point in, and then now it feels like life, because that's how, like, I feel like that's the process of life. You're trying to figure out, you're going through a breakup, and then but you also just got a new job, and it's like a lot. It's always a lot going on, and then when you finally lay your body down, and like all human beings, we always have to, no matter how much stress is going on, our body's gonna shut down. You shut down, and then you wake up and you might have some clarity, you know. And I try to put that in a repetitive cycle over and over into one painting, so 500 years from now people can see it and they can feel that journey of struggle and triumph, and you know, and yeah. So that's if there's a secret ingredient, that's what it is in the work. And it's more complex than just black joy or black figuration abstraction. And I hope that I don't have to pass away until people can like really look at it and appreciate it for that, you know, whatever, you know. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
we do appreciate it, and many more people, I think, that are becoming more aware. I don't think anybody who isn't face to face with your work doesn't appreciate it. It's just making sure enough people get face to face with it, right? But
yeah,
it's stunning and beautiful, and clearly comes from such an authentic place.
Yeah.
And yeah, so thank you.
Thank you. You know, and I also just want to thank you for opening your space to me. And I know, you know, we spoke when this was in a development stage, and I'm sure it's still growing, you know, the Atelier. And tell me if I'm saying that wrong, because Atelier, I'm not French.
Well, you know what's so
Atelier.
funny is I started this thinking this is going to be this atelier, and I'm going to have
Atelier.
clothes and everything, all this stuff, but then somehow that part I haven't even started yet, and the building itself has taken over. So, you know, you come into a room, you think you're going to build something to deal with sustainable, you know, fashion as art, and really to me it was just about creativity, and then you take the boards off the walls and you discover that.
Yeah.
And then you learn more about the history, and then and the building has reshaped everything. So to sit here with you as a first conversation in this room, it's like you're christening this space and allowing it to be the beginning of something new. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, so before you had the space, I would walk past here, and you know, I'm big on feeling spirit. Like, how do I feel about a space? Like, I don't know if you've ever had it where you walk into a space, it's almost like it's a negative feeling. You just want to leave. You know, you don't even know why. But then there's these positive spaces that invite you in, and that's the way I feel about this space. You know, so it's. I was speaking in an interview recently about the multiple lives that we live. You don't have to be a famous artist to have this happen, but we have the living life that we have now, and then we have the legacy that we leave behind, right? And that has an energy, and it's a real energy, you know, and it doesn't die, you know. So like right now, what's happening in this space, because this is just what I feel, it's in alignment with the original what was happening here, the creation that was happening here, then it's blessed, you know? And that's what I feel about it. So,
I got to get you painting here. Got to encourage him to paint.
yeah, I mean,
See what this space does. We'll close the whole building.
yeah.
We'll all bring you coffee.
That would be crazy, you know, like, cause I think that I've noticed I paint differently in different places.
Spaces, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to show you upstairs. Yeah, let's walk around.
Yeah, I've never been up there, so yeah, that would be cool. Yeah. Hey.
Hey, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
So we'll move the chairs around some tables. We'll figure out food in the front room, and we'll all just figure it out together.
All right, cool. Thank you guys for
Thank
being an
you.
audience, and thank you so much. Yes. Oh, I got us.